Welcome to another edition of the CJ McCollum Show. We are back after some confusion and vacationing last week. I did not go to Galveston. I had a nice vacation with my family. I was on the beach.
Shout out Charles.
Shout out to Charles Barkley.
And Beyonce's mom.
And Beyonce while we're there. And Jay-Z, respectfully.
Right.
It was a good time to just get away with the family and watch my son run around on the beach and just relax. And I don't call it a vacation. I call it like a change of scenery.
It's
vacation.
a trip. With kids, it's a trip.
Trip with
it's not
kids.
Yeah. But you deserve that. You deserve all the trips. Like, yes, you are a professional athlete making comparably a lot of money, but that is a long, grueling season. So when you were even open to recording a pod last week, we were like, what? So it's okay that you didn't know that a small part of Florida is in the central time zone, which was weird.
Yeah. A lot of miscommunication on my part. I was living life as if I was on the Eastern Standard Time for a few days in terms of naps and bedtime with my little man, and slowly I figured out that I had missed the podcast by an hour because of the lack of communication on Central versus Eastern. But we're here now. I gave you guys 7 minutes of your life back because I think I was on hold for about 30 minutes before you guys realized I wasn't joining. So I apologize, and I owe you.
Oh, no, you don't. We're here. We're here now. You were supposed to be on vacation, to be honest.
I know. And I sat in front of my computer like an idiot for about 15 minutes.
It happens to the best of us. Time zones get the best of me all the time. When I go to LA, I bust out my hand sometimes to count backwards. That's how bad. That's how bad it is.
No, that's important. But I think the cool thing about all of this is that we're here, we're recording, and we get to talk about a series that is continuing to move along. Inevitably will end probably sooner than later, if one had to guess. I will go on the record saying that I've been wrong a lot this entire playoffs. I had the Knicks winning, I had Denver winning, and I probably would have had Minnesota winning. And here we are. I think it's safe to say that we all expected Boston to make it to the finals. And I think I said the Mavs. I don't know if I did a takesy backsies. Did I do a takesy backsies? I think
I'm
you
not sure.
I think you did a Mavs in 6. You said it strong. You said it with your chest. Mavs in 6.
But what I didn't expect was the Mavericks to be this dominant in the Western Conference Finals. Now there's still time. Can the Timberwolves pull off history? I don't know. They're going back to Minnesota. This has been a really interesting series, especially for late game situations. The Timberwolves, they've been outscored 24-11 in the final 3 minutes of games 1 and 3, and then they outscored the Mavs 10-8 in game 4. So it's been a very, very tightly contested now 5-game series.
I've been surprised at the entire playoffs in terms of how well the Pacers played, right? A few possessions away from the series still going on, to how well Dallas has defended, being known for an offensive team most of, the last few years, and not being a great defensive team this season. Kind of shifting trade deadline and then shifting at the playoffs to where they are guarding really well consistently, and they have arguably two of the best closers in the game with Luka and Kyrie. And shout out to Kyrie, just playing so well, seeming so happy, so at peace, and in such great control over the game. And he was a huge boost for them in terms of veteran leadership, maturity, poise. He was 14-0 in elimination games up until last night. He just understands how to win, and the skill set is something that is to be admired. That's hard work and dedication towards a craft to really hone in and be able to do those finishes, left hand, right hand, the angles, the footwork, the pivoting, and then to be able to play alongside a guy like Luka, and at times almost defer and just kind of let him go. I think that shows you the growth that they both had, because I think early on in the relationship they were kind of fighting each other. I think they were fighting each
Last
other.
year, they admitted that. It was a lot of they were being passive with each other. They know how to communicate, but this has been a year in the making with them. Heading into training camp. Really focusing on their bond. Behind the scenes, talking to Jason Kidd about how much they've put in time, off the court with each other, getting to understand each other. And whenever you talk to them, whenever I talk to Luka about Kyrie or vice versa, big smile on their faces. And there was all this talk, obviously with Luka, putting up an MVP caliber season. There was a lot of, Batman and Robin talk. But I had a conversation with Kyrie, around that like February, March mark where they started to kind of turn it on. And I said, I told Kyrie, I go, this could be more of like a Batman Superman thing because you're still at the peak of your powers. And he goes, oh, you think so? And I go, yeah, it's pretty evident. Your finishing ability is still there. Your conditioning, like he's running around like he's in his 20s. Right. And I think he's like started to really believe it even more and more that, this was a positive place for him and that he still is one of, if not the most skilled players in the game. And we're seeing that, kind of play out between them. Plus, shout out to Nico Harrison and the moves he made, PJ Washington, and obviously Gafford have been huge for them, and the drafting of Derek Lively. And this team's just kind of, clicking on all cylinders and peaking at the right time.
No, I absolutely agree. And I think Kyrie has completely bought in to everything. There was a video clip of him shaking everybody's hand at halftime and not leaving the court until he shook everybody's hand. You see the communication, the poise, but the camaraderie that they have as a team, when they're down in games, how they stick together, how they trust each other, how they make the extra passes. When they're ahead in games, the willingness to kind of defer. He talked about how OKC series was the hardest of his career. His willingness to defer or just make the right play over and over again, understanding that, he's a scorer. He's a guy who generates baskets, and he didn't have many opportunities to do that based on how they were guarding him, and he didn't force the action. He just made the right plays over and over again, and some nights only shot 10, 11 times. And with the help of some of those additions you talked about from Nico Harrison, shout out to my boy Nico, they are a better team, more deep, and they're doing all of this without Maxi Kleber. Obviously, he came back last game. No Derek Lively last game.
Wait, that meme was so good. Of like all, did you see when Luka, Kyrie, Derek Jones and PJ, I think it was, were yelling at Maxi? Yes, because Maxi's been out for a while, and they're in this like they're in it. Like this Mavs team, they're one. And so them yelling at him to come join their huddle was. It was just a great moment to show the connectivity of that group, and Maxi kind of being a little behind the 8 ball in terms of his first game back.
Yeah, no, that was definitely cool to see, and I think that shows you, like you said before, the connectivity. And Jay Kidd, who's going to get a nice extension if he hasn't already got one, has done a great job of kind of getting them all to buy in, using his timeouts well, figuring out rotations. They have mixed and matched certain matchups, and I'm really just impressed with how well they've played and how they've adapted throughout the course of the season and been able to take on many different identities from regular season to the end of the season, post All-Star break to the playoffs. And I look forward to seeing, obviously, how this series finishes up with the game on Thursday, but also that potential matchup of Mr. Irving in the Boston Garden and Mr. Porzingis playing against his former team.
Yeah.
It's going to be a lot of fun to watch, a lot of isolation basketball and a lot of tough shot makers all coexisting in one arena.
Especially with the Porzingis side of things, because, he's ramping up. He's, the expectation is that he's going to play game 1, which is not until June 6th. So, the Celtics are, off for more than a week. So he has a lot of time to ramp up and get himself, in game shape. But when you think about kind of what plagued Porzingis, is his post-up ability, and he said he had a rude awakening when he was in Dallas, just about like really feeling like he lacked that ability. And so and then obviously there was just not necessarily tension between Luka and Porzingis, but they couldn't really figure out how to be a 1A 1B or a 1 and 2. And so it's interesting, that kind of like mirror of how Kristaps has been looking and admitting that he's had some growth and maturity to where he is now with the Celtics, feeling like that's the perfect place for him at that point in his career. And Kyrie also admitting at the beginning of the year some growth and maturity that he's had to go through, to where he's, to steal Brian Windhorse's term, in full bloom with the Mavericks, with his ability to kind of feel like he's in the right place. So I think it's good to kind of see them both in a good place and on both of those teams. I don't know. I'm sure both sets of fans are going to lean into that vitriol when each come to town, but I wonder how much that tension actually means to those players.
I think it's definitely going to mean a lot to the fans. And I think for the players, it's about competing for a championship. And just so happenstance, as they say, they're going to end up playing the Boston Celtics, presumably once they finish this series against the Minnesota Timberwolves. And I think they're all at different stages of life. Like, Boston seems to be very happy. They got Drew Holiday. They got Derek White. They have all these pieces around the Jays. Porzingis presumably coming back. Al Horford. They got Pritchard. They got Sam Hauser. They rely on their starters. They got a new coach, from the last few years, bringing in,
Joe Mazzulla.
Mazzulla replacing Udoka. And then Dallas, they seem to be happy. It's like a happy marriage all the way around, where Luka, Kyrie are a seamless fit now. They bring in Nico. He signs Kai. They make a deadline trade. Shout out to my guys, Seth Curry and Grant Williams. I wonder, and maybe this is a conversation for another day, are my boys going to get rings if Dallas wins?
Well, but really, Grant Williams kind of looking, there's that meme from like SpongeBob where he's looking out the window at his two former teams, the Celtics and Mavericks, playing.
My guys, he should get a ring regardless at this point, right?
Your VP,
does he get a ring regardless at this point? Like, either way?
I mean, he started the season on the team, but I don't know. I don't know the rules. Aren't you? I feel like you would know those rules better than me.
I think it's team discretion, and there's a certain amount of games.
Ooh, team discretion. That doesn't look very favorable for your guy.
Maybe.
Grant,
I mean, he's loved. He's loved in both Boston and Dallas by some players, for sure.
He's not going to get one from Boston because he didn't start the year on Boston. So, like, no.
Yeah. You're right. Exactly.
The Mavericks, and I don't know if they're gonna.
Luka would sign off on that. Luka's a nice guy. I think he would sign off.
I didn't say Luka's a nice guy, but I don't think Grant should be holding his breath about getting a championship ring if they win. I do. Wait, okay.
What about my guy Seth Curry?
I mean, I guess it would be the same thing. Like, I don't know. There is some relationship.
Man, if this is me, run me my ring.
If you started the season.
Run me my ring, all right?
So basically, like, if the Trailblazers, the year you got traded, if the Blazers won the championship.
Run me my ring.
Okay, then there you go.
Run it to
That's
me.
Fine.
We don't got to do a ceremony or nothing like that, but just let me keep it.
But here's the thing. You can't compare your standing on the Blazers to, Seth and Grant's standing with the Mavs.
I understand, but without them, they wouldn't have been able to acquire the pieces necessary to win a championship.
Sure, I guess that's an argument.
It's like paying it forward.
Why are we even talking about it? Let me hit you with like a real sports radio conversation, because I want to hear you, because I've been, on Hoop Streams and a couple other shows and, ad nauseum kind of talking about this. Do want to get your thoughts on if, and this is no disrespect to the Timberwolves, we're just kind of counting on history not happening, but if the Mavericks and Celtics play each other, better duo, Kyrie and Luka, or the Jays?
Oh, this is tough. Yeah, I can't answer this. I think they're both great duos
Oh,
in
God.
their own right.
Oh, God.
Cliche buzzwords. I would say that as it stands right now, if you look at body of work, you got to go with the Jays because they've made it to more finals. And I think the casual fan is going to look at like
Yeah, but Kyrie's only one of those who've actually won a
won a chip.
finals.
But are we talking about, this is the confusing part, is it skill set? Is it body of work? Is it combination? The Celtics have been in the finals, what, 4 conference finals, 5 out of 7 or 4 out of the last 7 years?
5 out of 7, yeah.
Conference finals 5 out of 7 years is incredible. That's really impressive.
Yeah, but that's not what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about resume. I'm talking about like
You see
straight
how I
up.
that? You see how I
Yes,
avoided that?
I know all the tricks. Straight up. Who would you rather play with? Okay, which duo would you rather play with?
Oh, that is tough. I think in my situation, based on my game and how I play, I would probably compliment the Jays better because they're both like 6'7", 6'8". So it's like that's the tough part, right? Like I could play with anybody. Luka's like a 6'8", 6'9" point forward. Kai's like 6'2", 6'3". So I think from a size standpoint, ability to switch, ability to guard, ability to pair, the Celtics can more easily play smaller guys alongside them because Tatum can play the 4, Jaylen Brown can play the 4. Me and Kai can't play the 4. Like we can guard the occasional stretch 4, you know what I'm saying? Like Obi Toppin or some of those guys that are more wings that are just playing small ball 4, but we can't go and guard like old school big 4s that used to play in the league. So I think that's the tough part. But I think from a skill, if you're looking at just skill, I would go Luka Kyrie because of Kyrie's skill is just like so advanced. I'd say they got more skill. Not to say that the Jays aren't skilled because them boys is killers. Them boys they got footwork, they 3-level scores, mid post, all of that stuff. But they also like big, strong. Like Jaylen Brown is big and strong. Like he could go play football. He could go play like other sports. He could be in a weightlifting competition if he wanted. Like he is strong and sturdy, really good movement patterns. He went and averaged 29 on like 52% in the conference finals to win conference finals MVP. And Jason basically guards 1 through 4, 1 through 5 as well. But I would say like in terms of like the buckets that they're getting, like Luka's slow, right? Like he'll tell you. He's slow.
Or he controls the pace.
No, he's slow and he controls the pace, and he'll tell you that. But like the way he scores is like he ain't dunking on you. He's bop bop step backs. Kyrie ain't dunking on you. It's bop bop bop. It's change the direction. It's pivots. It's left hand. So it's like the way they score is different. And if we're being honest here, like Luka just averaged 35 for the year. Like,
yes.
Granted, their team
35, 9, and 9. First ever to do that, by the way.
Insane. So like I would say that they're being used differently. Like Jason and the Jays don't have to do as much because they got a really good team, a deep team, and they shoot lots of threes. Dallas is heavy 1-2 punch, pick and rolls, ISOs with those 2 guys.
Okay. You said a whole lot and also nothing at all.
I accomplished my goal. That was my goal.
Okay, let me go.
Who
to
would
the
you
Celtics.
pick?
I don't play, but right now, I'm at between those 2 duos. I feel I'm gravitate towards how connected Luka and Kyrie are.
Oh,
right now.
That was a great wording. That was professional. Gravitate towards they're more connected.
Yes, as a viewer of the game, covering both these teams, I'm feeling a connection between Kyrie and Luka that I think sets them apart. But I think that leads to my next question with Jaylen and Jason. Okay, and I've had these conversations around the Celtics and covering this team a bunch this year, and the impatience with their success. That is how Joe Mazzulla kind of phrased the criticism around Jason Tatum. He's, like you said, 5 of the 7. He's pretty much been at the Eastern Conference Finals his entire career and has yet to win it. And then you have Jaylen Brown. He just won the Eastern Conference Finals MVP. You know, like he says, I never win anything. But, you know, like he said that. And, you know, he was mad that he, you know, wasn't named to an all defensive team. So, you know, let me start here. Like, who do you feel is more underappreciated, Jaylen or Jason? Because Jason tends to get all the Okay.
Jaylen is more underappreciated, and I think it's not financially, right? Let's just take that out for a second. I think based on his game, how he's viewed in society, by society I mean like the casual fan, how he's viewed by, respectfully, the media.
Yeah.
Not making an all NBA team. I think
name your sources.
I think all of those things kind of point to the fact that, like he said before, he's a bit undervalued, underappreciated. You're talking about a two-way guy, right? Guards, scores, 3-level score, left hand has gotten better, hits big shots. Think about that game against the Indiana Pacers in Game 1.
I think that's what set him apart from winning Eastern Conference Finals MVP. Did you think he should win? I mean, it was a 5-4 vote. 5 for Jaylen, 4 for Tatum.
I think it was coin flip, but him winning that game and then just the defensive prowess to be able to guard, switch on guys, take Pascal Siakam out of some games or just possessions of games or quarters of games, the tenacity, I think all of those things kind of played a factor. But I would say that I think he's most undervalued. And to go back to your first point, I think it's easy to say in choosing the duos, or easier to say Kai and Luka because it's fresh.
Yes, that's why I said that.
They're still in the honeymoon phase. Like this is new, and it's like when something is new and shiny, it's like, oh, this is the greatest thing in the world.
Yes,
they've been killing for a year, almost a decade. For years, they've been getting to it. And to Joe Mazzulla's point, it's like winner's fatigue. Like people are tired of just watching them be it's like good.
Either you're gonna, you're good, or you're gonna, actually win.
It's like most teams would love to say that they've been in the conference finals
the thing
5
is,
out of 7 years.
It's the whatever the Batman saying, like you either die a hero or live long enough to see yourself become the villain. Mm-hmm. And that's so true. They've just been around enough where it's like, did you win a championship yet? Okay, then who's next? Very impatient society we live in right now. and especially in the NBA, where we're looking to crown the next face of the NBA. Which I know I'm bouncing around, but I do have another thought because, it's been 2 weeks. I have so much, CJ. Speaking of fresh and new, and the new face of the NBA, or, who people were appointing. When you watch Anthony Edwards in this Western Conference Finals, like, do shades of your first deep playoff run kind of pop in your mind of how hard it is, the conditioning that it takes, the realization that there's more to, getting your body ready for, playing all the way until June, than just being, having young legs at 22?
Yeah, I definitely, let's just be clear here. We're two different players. I was utilized completely differently. I don't have that. He's 6'6" at 22, crazy vert, handles, 3-level score, mid-post game, gets to the free throw line. Like, his game is, we're two different. 22, I was just fresh out of college, like, trying to figure it out. Not dunking on guys in the league. But I think the cool part about all this is it's trial and error right now. Like, he's learning on the fly, going through a postseason run in which he's being asked to do a lot. Mm-hmm. He's a two-way guy, having to go guard two killers, having to carry the load offensively, where at times they don't have great spacing. At times they have good spacing. It's a little clogged up. He's getting double teamed. They're rotating. And he's figuring out how to continue to empower his teammates while going and getting his. And I think he's done a great job of handling the media. He's done a great job of being authentically himself and competing. Now, regardless of what he's shooting from the field, he's competing every night. And
did you ever issue with him saying he was tired? In Game 1 after they, he was like, I guess we were just tired. Which was the truth.
He's overly honest. Probably shouldn't have said that. But, like, he's just a very, like, genuinely honest person who, like, says what comes to his mind. And, I mean, you could see he was fatigued. So it wasn't
what's the problem with saying you were tired?
It's like you give, the saying as you get older is that you don't want to give the other team anything. Like it's a thin line between winning and losing. The margins are so thin. You don't want to give like one of the rookie. I'm not gonna say a rookie mistake, but one of the younger mistakes that like some guys make is you give bulletin board material. Like Ant saying, "I'm gonna go guard Kyrie."
Right.
They talked about that. Kyrie sitting at
Which,
the
by
crib.
the way, yeah, I think it was twisted a little bit.
It was twisted, but like as a competitor, you take
Yeah.
anything and you use that as motivation. Like you
Right.
just need the littlest thing. Like it could even be a compliment, but like you turn it into a slight and you convince yourself that it's a slight to go try to take it to the next level.
Yeah.
And a killer like that is just in his mind, he's basically saying like, oh, he's saying that he gonna lock me up. Like he probably played with that, you know, over and over again while he's working out. Like he really think he can guard me. Like he's saying he can guard me, Kyrie, or, you know what I mean? Like over and over again. And then that's the approach. He came in aggressive in the first quarter, where all season he's been passive in the first quarter. He
Now,
turned the
Ant
switch
did a
on.
good job in game 4 on Kyrie. And Kyrie gave them some bulletin board material when he goes, "This is a regular game for us. This is their Super Bowl." So do you think that in line with what you just said, do you think that's where things,
I mean, it was also true, and it was also right before the game, and they all probably had their phones right before the game and seen it. But I think he knew what he was doing when he did that. Like he did that on purpose, because
why would you give
historically,
them any kind of added like push like that then?
I think he just knows that the series is over. I think it's one of those things where he's like, there's no way they beat us 4 times in a row.
I know, but don't you want to handle it like in a sweep, because you know that the Celtics are sitting pretty waiting for you?
Yeah, that's true. And I seen one of the funniest tweets of the day, and this isn't just me, like, it said that the the Dallas Mavericks are basically ahead of the curve. They don't want Luka to have 10 days off. So,
exactly.
So they lost. But no, I think Minnesota just competed, and they should have won. I mean, they could have won more games in this series if it wasn't for some tough shot making. This could be a more competitive series. But to your point, of all points, I think there's certain things you keep to yourself in private, and there's certain things you say to the media, and you got to be willing to live with the results of either one. But Ant was tired. I heard he was getting like oxygen. He was getting oxygen in the tunnel. So he was tired, and he could tell he was coming up short. Wasn't as aggressive. Was passive, and
they just came off a 7-game series against Denver, altitude, but they looked re-energized in game 4. So I wonder if he's gotten his legs back, and this whole team's gotten their legs back. You're saying no chance that
they're
they can
fighting
pull off
for their lives. I think it ends soon
in Minnesota.
Yeah, I think Dallas has played really well on the road. Luka loves the idea of shutting up crowds. I mean, since he was a pro at 13 or 14, he's been hitting big shots in hostile
Well, they already won 2
environments.
there.
I'm gonna say that this is gonna end. I don't see Kyrie playing that poorly from a shooting standpoint again in a must-win, semi-must-win game. You don't want to go back to Dallas. You want to be able to relax and kick your feet up. And I think it also gives time. Maybe Derek Lively's back, which could make a difference. Like there's a lot of things that could factor into why Dallas is in position to win this next game.
So another aspect of this Minnesota team, is just them being the top defense in the league and kind of not looking like it, and a lot falling on Rudy Gobert, even though he's been one of the most consistent players for them in this series. What do you make of the slander, if you will, around Rudy Gobert? I mean, I did vote him for Defensive Player of the Year. A lot comes from this feeling that players don't really respect him as a defender. I mean, you're seeing it just point blank, like Luka having no respect for him as a defender. How he was talking to him after he hit that huge step back, and then also when he, picked his pocket, yelling at the bench, like giving the, can you believe this guy? Like was trying to, post up on me. Now that was him on the offensive end, but still, there's just, why do you think there is this, like, I don't know, overall just lack of respect for Rudy Gobert?
I think it's lack of respect from certain people. I think for the Luka situation, it's just Euro on Euro crime right now, and they've been playing against each other for years. And it's kind of like, I joke, guys that grew up in a similar place as you, or Midwest people in general, like, you're going to go at them a little harder because, like, where they from, those types of things. And
so it's because he's French, right? It's just
I think that's just Luka being Luka. Like, Luka, that's how Luka is. Like, Luka was...
No, okay, then they'll throw in Draymond and throw in, like...
That's different. Dre and him have a history. But I think you notice the people that are really publicly speaking about him are other big men. Like,
yeah.
I'm a guard, right? And I understand the value that Rudy brings. I watch basketball. I study basketball. Does Rudy get scored on sometimes? Yeah. He's guarding the best offensive player statistically in the league this year.
He shouldn't have been guarding Luka Doncic. Like,
no one can guard. Luka averaged 35 this year, which means no one can guard him, which means it's not Rudy's fault. He was just the one that got caught in the switch. Not even
Wemby, all you people coming out. Well, Wemby would have blocked that shot. Let's just...
No. Luka is Luka for a reason. So, like, I think that's just... It's misplayed. Minnesota's defense completely changed once Rudy got there. They're the best defense in the NBA. The statistics show it. They play in a drop a lot. They have switchable wings. Rudy protects and cleans up all the messes that are out there. That's his job, to clean up the mess. And he's been doing a great job at that. Now, if you want him to be at the level of ball screens and stuff, that's not him. He's not going to do that consistently. But what he has gotten better at is moving his feet on the perimeter, getting contests, and guarding guards. Now, can he guard Luka for an entire game? No. But the Defensive Player of the Year award, and we argue about this all the time, it's based on regular season statistics. So the argument is him or Wemby. Right. They are the two that had a chance to win. You could argue Wemby, but arguing Wemby doesn't take away from Rudy. Wemby just had a great year.
He did, but he also...
They lost like 50, 60 games.
And it wasn't even a great team defense. So you would have voted Rudy Gobert.
I would have voted Rudy. It's logical. It's a logical vote based on his impact, the metrics, what he's done to that team and that defense. He is not a perimeter defender. He's a guy that protects the interior. He rebounds, he blocks shots, he alters shots.
He's the quarterback of the defense.
He's the scheme. He's the scheme defensively that helps.
Yeah. So, he is the system.
He's the system.
To quote James Harden.
He is a system defensively, and he played in Utah, and they were a great defensive team. Love Joe Ingles, love him to death. They were a top 5 defensive team. That's Rudy. That is not Joe. That wasn't Don. That wasn't Mike Conley. Like, Rudy made them a great defensive team. And he's doing the same thing in Minnesota. Now, granted, you got McDaniels, you got Ant, you got Conley, you got guys that can guard, but he covers up a lot of messes all year long. And then he gets scored on by arguably the best step back 3-point shooter in the league.
Yeah. And
people like lose their minds. But I think it's unfair slander being directed towards him. And I think it's coming from a lot of bigs. I don't see guards.
I just don't like seeing how many. You mean him having 4 defensive player of the year?
It's animosity and sometimes jealousy, and I don't get it. We all were paid well. We all had great careers. When I retire, I'm not going to be hating on guys that are guards that accomplish X, Y, Z. Like, it is what it is. Each era is different. And just respect that he's a 4 or 5-time defensive player of the year, and that Wemby's probably going to be a 10-time defensive player of the year. Right. That's just what it is.
Right. Can I hit you with one last sports talk radio question before we wrap up? I'm sure you hate this. Okay. But as we look forward to the possible matchup of the Celtics and the Mavericks, who winning a championship is more important to Jason Tatum or Luka Doncic's quote-unquote legacy?
I would go Tatum because Luka won 50 games. They won one more game than the New Orleans Pelicans. They made a midseason trade. Essentially weren't favored to be here, right? Like, no one was like, Dallas Mavericks are going to win a championship. Since the season began, everyone talked about how big and how important that trade was for Jrue Holiday, how they're championship contenders. He was the final piece, pushed them over the edge. Now with Porzingis, re-signed Al Horford. You got the highest paid guy in the history of the basketball until his teammate becomes the highest paid guy in the history of basketball, and Jason Tatum. That's the only thing that he's missing, and also why I think at times they give more credit to other players and kind of tier Jason in like tiers with certain guys instead of just respecting that, like, yo, this dude is a killer whether he wins a ring or not. I think because he plays for the Celtics, the history of that organization, the Larry Bird comparisons, like there's just so many things that are factoring into why people are holding him to a higher standard of winning. And it's not the same for a lot of other players because, quite frankly, they don't play for the Celtics and their teams aren't as good. And I think if Luka lost the championship, they would say that, oh, he lost to a better team. If Jason loses the championship, they would be like, Luka beat him.
Yes. Yes. Thing is that I think we're already kind of talking about Luka in conversations of the best player in the league. MVP, runner up, third in MVP voting. Whereas Tatum, it's like he's, I don't know if you don't do lists like this, but like, is he in the top 5, whatever. But if you actually dig into his stats, I mean, he's already at 2,600 playoff career points, passing LeBron and second to only Kobe Bryant for most by a player at age 26. So like again, it goes to like just the impatience with his success. And I feel like there's a credibility factor, like as we've been talking about. All right, he has that championship. Can't say anything more. Like, because once you get the championship, like he's got that ring. Whereas with Luka, if he wins and beats the Boston Celtics, I just feel like
his legend grows.
Yeah, I feel like it catapults him into like a whole nother stratosphere of tiers of players, because he's already like, because Luka like has, there's a, I don't know if it's charisma, but there's a big personality there. Okay, there's a big personality. Even if that personality is arguing with the refs, there's a big personality with Luka, which you don't really see even with like Jokic. That I think, we and you see other players kind of fall over themselves to compliment what kind of like the dog that he is. So I don't know. I guess I think it's a different level of what it would do. I'm not saying one is better because like, quieting the noise around Tatum, I feel like is just as important as shooting Luka into, best player in the league category.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I think looking at the situation, J Kidd already said that Luka was better than Dirk, right?
Dirk? Yes, he did.
J Kidd said that.
Yeah.
Dirk won a championship. And
right.
They're already saying that he's better than the guy who has a Nowinski Boulevard.
Yeah, who's
beat Bron, D Wade, Chris Bosh.
Whose silhouette is on the court that he plays on.
At 25, they're already saying that he's better than him. With no championship. That's how good he's been.
Right.
So for Jason, this championship is, you put it under your belt and you say, shut up, I got this chip.
Shut up.
My numbers are my numbers.
Look at my numbers and shut up is
and
what
I
it
got
is.
This chip. I'm outscored
And I brought
Larry
you
Bird.
banner number 18 because that's the thing. That's the thing. It's for the Celtics. Banner 18.
It changes things.
It's different. Like it's a different, like who he plays for. And it's part of the criticism around him is who he plays for. So either way.
He wants this ring. You can tell he wants this ring bad. Like this is the one that like they can exhale collectively because
he was 24 the last time they were in the finals.
And they got 60 what?
I got jeans in my drawer that are 24 years old, hoping that one day I could still fit in them. It's gonna happen. It's gonna happen.
I can't fit my jeans from when I was 24.
No, those are the days.
It's over for those jeans. You go a little younger. My jeans were so baggy, I could definitely fit them now.
Yes.
From the baggy days.
Yes, the Jabos. You don't know anything about that. I'm older than you.
I'm from the way. I know about Jabot jeans. You ain't that much older than me. I know about the Jabot jeans. You get the colorful joints, like the red,
colorful ones, and the pockets went all the way down to the knees. Now we've lost all our Gen Z listeners. Sorry, guys. That's probably, you know what? That's probably in style because they're now all wearing 90s fashion.
It's a recycle. Everything comes back.
Well, this was a delight. We'll
Always
see.
a pleasure. Always a pleasure.
Next week we'll know what the actual finals matchup is and off and running. But we got some days off without basketball. It's gonna be whenever that happens.
We're gonna have some days off soon, so hope you enjoy the downtime and get some rest. Start working on your vacation plans for whenever that can happen.
Post Vegas.
Ooh, post Summer League?
Yeah.
Oh, that's a crazy run. Well, I might try to get one more in before that.
Yes, you should. You should. I mean, sun's out, guns out already.
Oh
so.
Yeah, you know, I'm in NOLA. I got to. But you've been tuning into the CJ McCollum Show with me, CJ McCollum, and Cassidy. Thanks for joining us. Remember to hit that like button, subscribe on YouTube, and follow us wherever you listen to your podcast. Stay tuned for another exciting episode next week, and we will catch you then as long as the time zone is where it should be.
Just saw you have a clock on your phone, CJ.
My phone was telling me the time that I thought that I was supposed to be in.
Well, you got to take that up with Apple.
I actually have an issue with my phone. Verizon is sending me another phone because my SIM just stopped working 6 days ago.
Oh.
So I can only FaceTime with Wi-Fi and iMessage, but I can't call or receive calls.
Okay, well, that's probably an issue when it comes to a phone.
Yeah, no, it is. Huge issue.
Okay, well, I'll call you later then.
All right. Have a great one.